Hey guys, welcome back to Trekyards, where we take a look at all things Star Trek and break it down, discuss it, and have a lot of great fun and discussions, I guess. Yeah. So I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Connor Coggins, and today we are looking at, well, all of the Trek canon exists irrespective of the legal side. It all exists in this grand spectrum of the universe, and either intentionally or unintentionally, they might link to different things. For example, from season 1, the Shinjo captain's chair is almost identical to the Kelvin's. Coincidence or not? Part of the canon? Yeah. And you, Stuart, came to me saying, there's some JJ themed stuff, as in the Kelvin timeline stuff, in Discovery Season 2, sort of. And I want to hear what you think, Stuart. So let's talk about them and if there are influences. I mean, Alex Kurtzman obviously helped write the JJ films, was heavily involved. He's now in here. But it's different licenses. I mean, different universe. I mean, Stuart, what did you pick up on? Let's talk about it.
Well, one of the things that stood out to me immediately was the landing pods, which, when they were traveling, seemed very much like they might have been a precursor to the jellyfish that we see in the 2009 JJ film. Yeah, the way they spun and moved and deeked and dived, and even the round cockpit with the... Anyway, and even the sounds they make were very similar.
With the big dome window that's visible.
Yeah. So lots of parallels there, and we know that the jellyfish from the prequel comics was designed and built by Geordi LaForge. So it seems like there's some kind of visual tie-in and stuff there, which I mean, I guess it's exciting.
Yeah, it's weird. Couple that, Stuart, with guess what? They're in a sort of fighter chase thing with spinning through asteroid field, and jellyfish does some cool spinny things, and then into darkness they do an asteroid chase through it, but then with physical EVA suits with thrusters between the Vengeance and the Enterprise, and in this they're with these ships, and if you look at the shots are very similar, to the point that they have to eject and also do a person collision crash and save grace. So it sort of doubles down those two JJ themes in the same sequence, and if you watch that bit, the fact it's so actiony, so VFXy, I mean, that is a J.J. Abrams mini movie.
Oh, you could play those side by side and see the similarities there for sure. Even the EVA suits, the way they're designed and the way they look, are very similar. So,
yeah. That said, though, I mean, at least they did try to make those. Because why would you have these pods on the ship? Like the point of beaming is that you beam. You don't need shuttles, and shuttles are sort of cargo things, and they're useful for other purposes. So what... I mean, these are very ultra-specific, and yet you have 4 launch tube things that all kind of have one back hole that doesn't exist on the design. You would have seen them come out of the ship. There's no place for it to go.
And there's a maze of like a mile-long network launch tube that like crisscrosses with the other launch tubes, so it's exciting.
But that does remind me of the J.J. Abrams, when everything's just so huge, and these ships are just like... Huge. Cavernous spaces and massive launch bays and infinite space, because visuals rather than thought.
And speaking of turbolift rides, that a huge cavernous space within the vessel where work bees are flying around, and it's all, if you actually look at the shot, there's no sense of where you are. There's a track that has the turbolift. It feels very much like a Universal Studios ride, to be honest, or the time tunnels from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. That's kind of the vibe that I got. So I don't know where this was inside the ship. I know in the JJ video game for the JJ movie, which was not the best video. It was not the best video game. It was kind of glitchy, but I really enjoyed it. You get to go inside the turbolift shafts, and they're basically just cylindrical tubes where the turbolifts are stationary in the middle, and then there's a ball that rolls around so they can move throughout the ship. That makes a ton of sense, and it makes sense. There's turbolift shafts. The ship doesn't look that big from the outside,
and we know exactly how big it is. Exactly.
And when we see the shot, I was very confused by this shot. I had to go back and rewatch it and to focus on anything in that shot, it just doesn't make sense. So take that for what it's worth.
So now, obviously, not all Trek canon makes sense. If you recall in Star Trek V, they go past deck 16 8 or 9 times, and it goes up forever. But
deck 75, which there's only like 24 decks on the ship.
yeah, and in First Contact they say 26 and there's only 21 decks. But mostly you understand these ships are still sort of like submarines. They're laid out in decks. Most of it is room area, as in like rooms for people to be in, for science to be in. You got cargo bays and more than one floor. You got shuttle bays, normally more than one floor. Turbolift shafts are meant to be very efficient tubes that go, and you can see them in all the MSDs. They go simple around, and any one can go anywhere. They're in 3 dimensions, but there's always stuff around them. Is the implication? There's not wasted space. Now this shot says to me, first of all, a massive amount of wasted space. Visually, it's not even that interesting. It's a blur of CGI. I like the ending that you go into the tube, but then just show us a tube going around a bend, and if you want to have see-through things, have it look down on people in corridors. I mean, that's all you can do. This doesn't make any real sense to me, and I'm sure that John Eves, if he was shown this, he'd be like, "Oh, that's in Discovery, is it? Oh, I didn't design what?"
Yeah. And speaking of corridors, when they're walking to the turbolift from the transporter room, they're walking through a corridor, and above them is like a skylight where you look up and you see this as well. You see work bees zipping around, and it's like, what? Where in the ship is this? Just so I can get a sense of where I am. The ship's not very big. You look at the saucer. There's no way it's in the saucer. You look in the secondary hull. I can't imagine it being there at all.
But this changes the game. Now, what's interesting about Discovery is it is a unique ship. It can do 300 science things, only got 120 crew. It's a really, or around that, it's a very, very, very small crew for the absolutely incredible size. And we obviously are against the size because it's an upscale for upscale's sake, mostly to make the bridge window feel okay on the bridge. Now, with that comes the, well, smaller crew than anything of the same size and absolutely ginormous ship don't connect. We hypothesize that, the Spore, pretty open stationary room is huge, takes a lot of space. And obviously the shuttle bay is huge, takes a lot of space. So now being shown that, and an extrapolation that probably the entire secondary hull might actually be hollow. That the only science, the only living space is in the primary hull, and that's why the ship is so big and so different. It is just this raw, big, open internal space with a couple of base decks, a couple of base things, but mostly it's just zooming space with work bees repairing internal components. Is that not Hull Breach's worst nightmare?
Yes, exactly. And don't forget, Lorca's little secret room with his stash of weapons was in the secondary hull. Because there's one scene where we
right at the bottom,
where we zoom out and we see the ship. So that could be there too. But this just is JJ logic, unfortunately, for this scene, and it blew my mind when I saw it. I thought they'd moved past stupid stuff like this. There's no explanation for this, and if there is, I want to hear it. I want it to be in an episode.
It's not even a cool visual. It shows this little thing on a track, whereas
it's a cool visual for the inside of like Starbase 1 orbiting Earth, or something like that. But
well, hey, thank God it wasn't inside the Enterprise. I mean, holy crap! It's like, oh yeah, this space exists in the Enterprise, sure. This is one of those examples of and this is interesting actually, so I'm going to be very negative now. Lots of videos about this episode have been very positive, and I'm sure the Discovery haters have been against us for that. And Discovery lovers will say, why are we being so biased in this one? It's amazing how you can be balanced and whatever. This is one of those classic Discovery stupid reference for no making sense, like a D7, like this, and this. It doesn't make any sense, and I'm trying to deconstruct anything inside these things. I mean, there isn't... all I see is turbolift shafts. Like, turbolift shafts go places, and they like circling round each other and going in corners. It's like, but you have turbolifts in like simple patterns and then corridors in between them. So if you're having turbolift for turbolift's sake, it's like having 9 or 10 lifts in a building. Well, no, you just have a lift to the floor and you briefly walk around the floor. This honestly changes the entire feel of the ship for me, because the fact that you can't see the end space of this, and that it looks at least 7 or 8 decks low, I don't understand. And we know. Now can I throw something else at you? Although, in a later scene, Tilly does say they're converting the engineering space into normal engineering space. So they might be deconstructing some of the internal spore drive mechanical pieces in the secondary hull, and therefore they're having to deconstruct from the inside because that's where the tech is to make it more of a science ship.
You think that would involve an extensive dry dock or space dock overhaul, though? Not just while we're doing our mission, we're going to be ripping the interior of the ship apart.
That's safe.
I can understand, like, doing the one spore reaction chamber room. Fine.
Yep.
Take that out when we're doing our thing because we still have the regular engine room or whatever. But, wow. I just don't know what to say about this scene. This was the one thing in this episode that was so entirely stupid that I rolled my eyes, because as much as this episode is probably the best episode of Discovery ever,
hands down the best one,
this just took me right out of the moment of enjoying it for like a few seconds anyway, and then it kind of got back on track. This scene was not needed at all.
Now, double whammy though. Earlier in the episode, we saw on the display visibly that the Enterprise outside, being scanned by Stamets, has straight nacelle struts and 430 crew, and yet we see exterior shots of the ship. It has angle struts, and Burnham says live scanning 230. So we now know that visual continuity inside a show can be retconned out. That diagram is wrong. You should now ignore that part of the episode. So this piece, I believe, is now one of those similar things. We can now retcon this out of the episode instantly, because now we know they make internal mistakes are that blatantly wrong that there is no explanation. You just got to ignore it. And so I now either believe the middle of the hull is this stupid, or it's now a shot that they wasted $7 to $10 to $15 to $20,000 on. And whoever directed this and told people to make this, they should be brought a couple of ranks down.
And also the turbolift, I can understand turbolift's doing this and whatever, but it does like this, like a roller coaster. So the artificial gravity plating in those things must be intense to keep everybody standing straight. You know what I'm saying?
When these people don't design things like a functional starship, where space is at premium and technology is at premium, you know, have you seen the Enterprise D blueprints? Have you seen the ultra efficiency and the way it's been laid out and thought out? I mean, I would love to see one of the people alter the MSD to try and incorporate this, because I'm pretty sure we've seen multiple times the side view of the ship in MSD form throughout like little versions, and it's got nice lines to show the decks. So you tell me in the middle of that hull, but not quite to the side where the spore unit is, and not quite forward enough to be at the shuttle bay, this is open.
Well, interestingly enough, remember when we saw the spore drive panel and you saw the secondary hull of the ship that's triangular, and on the spore drive panel was a big circle in the middle of the triangle area? Remember that scene?
Yes.
And we talked about that. Was that the whole spore check that we asked that question? Could that round thing be... I wish I had the screen cap in front of me.
Yeah. Last of all, and a little JJ thing, if you look at the freighter, NCC, I think it's 857, something like that, which is clearly older, but clearly Discovery era-ish because of the plating and the engine styles. If you look, when obviously it's been crashed and they say it's specifically been crushed a little bit by the gravity, it looks like a factory. A la J.J. Abrams again, using a set that exists to play a sci-fi set, and the inside of a medical frigate, which you would assume would be the most clean, sterile. I understand it's been crashed, but you get no sense of, apart from the self-contained special corridor, you get no sense of corridors or rooms. You just get factory open, massive space girders that are all rusted and destroyed. And it's like, I know you're trying to be cool, but you're damaging it a little bit by that. I'd rather have a green screen space that was thought through than that. And
then after the factory, we just get mess hall essentially redressed.
Yes,
you can tell it clearly it's mess hall by the windows. But anyway,
which annoyed me because are you telling me that now all the ships of that era and earlier, because 851's a pretty old ship, have the same window?
Anyway, and speaking of, how did they get there? Oh, they warped there. Well, let's look at the warp effect for a second.
Oh, brilliant! Yes.
Oh, yes. And it's black space, then you hear a sound, of course, because it's space. And then you see this blue laser thing shoot. And you move into that laser, and it's a tunnel. And inside that tunnel, way behind the leading edge of this thing, is Discovery warping. JJ fundamentally broke Star Trek.
Well, his art team that he controlled and then gave us yeses to because he didn't care. About respecting. So he liked Star Wars, not Star Trek. Warp is not a tunnel, it's a layer of subspace. I understand you're trying to be metaphorical, but the problem is, we know very well, you're not being metaphorical, you're being literal. That's what you do. You know, it's fine to say, oh yeah, we're just doing something creative. It's like, yeah, but it's visual canon now.
What's wrong?
I don't understand. It creates a tunnel of energy through space. No, it goes into subspace, and the universe moves around it and stuff. And it's just like, it is literally the same effect from Into Darkness. Like it's just a slightly different shade of blue.
Yeah. Considering how separate the licenses are for the movies and TV, this is remarkably similar to.
Yep.
What we see on the big screen, unfortunately. I guess we'll call that a wrap for today. Thank you very much for joining us for this JJ Discovery analysis. What do you guys think about the big TARDIS space in the middle? Does it look like the time tubes from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure? Yeah, no, it does. So tell us in the comments what you guys think about it. Let us know what you think about anything we talked about in this episode. Is it JJ tied in? The uniforms from season 1 tend to say so because there's deltas everywhere.
Well, and of course, the Pike uniform looks very, very similar to the Beyond uniform, even very similar fabric.
Very true. So there you go. There's lots of things that we could tie in, but we'd love to hear your comments and suggestions as well. So put them down below and let us know your thoughts. Also, click like, click subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification icon so you get notified when we upload. And check out all the bonus goodies that we got in the description. There's lots of cool stuff. Lots of social media as well. Join us on Facebook and have discussions like this over there all the time. And it's always a fun thing to do. Great community. So please come and join.
And of course, support us on Patreon, the monthly donation service, or a one-time donation at trekyards.com, or join us for our Super Chat lives, where you get to be part of our community, say whatever you want, we have to read it, share your thoughts on these multiple things, bring it all to life for us, for you, and help us out in the process. Or, of course, go to our Everpress site and, just buy whatever you want, or buy Eagle Moss ships, the things I fly with all the time. You can buy them. Use our code Trekyards, link down below. You get money off. Win, 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 and win.
That's right. Yeah. So until next time, guys, when it'll be another win for us because we're presenting and another win for you because you're watching. I am Captain Foley.
I am Connor Kungs.